Greetings, traveler. I'm SnapJelly, and I was re-watching some scenes of Game of Thrones yesterday, and as I tend to do with this, I went and overanalyzed the shit out of it. Because that's what most of you guys probably know me for, overanalyzing stuff. So I went on and reviewed some of Bronn's scenes, and I found what I think to be a mistake in Game of Thrones, and more specifically, Bronn's knife. Now, luckily for us, Bronn's knife is not a fantasy design at all. It is, in fact, a kukri, a Nepalese kukri. Now, you might say, Jelly, that is real-world history. What does that have to do with Game of Thrones? Game of Thrones is fantasy. Okay, I'm gonna get to that. Let me explain. For me to explain what's wrong with Bronn's knife, you are gonna have to know a bit of the history of his weapon, and more specifically, this part, this chunk that's out of the blade. Most people call it the kukri notch. Now, fact of the matter is, we are not sure why the kukri has a notch. There's a lot of people that think they know why the kukri has a notch, but fact of the matter is, we're not absolutely sure. A lot of people claim that they are sure, but they're not sure. But Jelly, Bronn's knife does have that notch, so where's the mistake? I know. Let me explain, okay? Just give me some time. The thing is, there's a lot of speculation as to why the kukri has this notch. And every practical reason as to why people believe it has this notch is honestly as ridiculous as the next and quite easily debunked. So I took the liberty to go on the interwebs and find some reasons why people believe the kukri has this notch and go over some of them. The most common one that I saw was people believed that it was used to let blood drip down from the blade and prevent it from going on your hands. So the idea was that as blood was going down the edge of the blade, as it reached the notch, it would drip down and not get on your hand. That is, to me, a bit ridiculous, because why would blood dripping down the blade limit itself to the edge of the blade? You don't think there's gonna be blood on the side of the blade, or, running down the entirety of the blade? Or, as you slice somebody's throat, just gouging out of the wound, perhaps getting all over you? And also, why is it that bad that your hand will get bloody? I mean, maybe it will make it slippery, but it will. Your hand will get bloody. You will get bloody all over if you stab or slice somebody to death. So that does not seem the reason. Another thing that people say is that it was simply made to create very wide, brutal gouge wounds. But again, I guess that's possible, but honestly, this is not really sharp, actually. I mean, I guess there's a little point right here on this particular example, but honestly, I can tell that this has never been sharpened before. It's not that impressive. And the cutting power of the kukri is in here. It's in the mass in the blade and the forwards curve. Let's just imagine you cutting somebody's throat from behind, right? You go like this, you can keep the blade straight, and all of a sudden it cuts you there. That's where the cutting power of the kukri comes from. So I don't really know the benefit from having just a gouging wound rather than a very powerful cut wound. This is a very powerful cutter, so why would you attack with that? Seems unreasonable. I've seen some people say that it was to catch opponents' blades, like a sword breaker. Again, I guess, but it's kind of a risky thing, isn't it? Considering how small it is, I don't think you're gonna have that much success actually burying with this thing, so I guess that's possible, but I doubt it. And lastly, I found one person who said that the gurkhas, this is the traditional weapon of the gurkhas, that they didn't go into battle without being wounded themselves, and that this notch was there for them to stab their own finger on while drawing. That is weird to me, again, because it's not particularly sharp, and look at how far away from the hilt that is. If I sheath it, and this is the original sheath, right? If I sheath it, my hand is nowhere close to that. I would have to bring my finger all the way over there, and then, rake on it quite hard, because again, it's not that sharp, yank it in order to have my finger bleed, then move my hand back towards here and pull out the rest of the knife. Whereas instead, if it didn't have that, and this part was just sharpened, then I could draw the knife, just cut my hand like this, just like that, with a little swoop, get myself a cut in the finger, have it bleed, and draw out the rest of the blade. And I would also argue that a little cut on the finger is more beneficial than a gouge, because you would have to yank that pretty hard in order to actually get some blood happening on your finger, and it would just take out a chunk of your flesh. And you know, healthcare not being the best at times, it's probably not that beneficial for you to have a chunk chopped out of your finger instead of a little cut. If the bleeding is what's important, then just, you know, a little cut would be easier to heal, I would say. But Jelly, how does all of this prove that Bronn's knife is wrong? I'm getting to it. Okay, calm down. I'm almost there, Let me explain. Another thing to note is that it's always relatively the same shape. It's always two chunks with a little flat piece in the middle. And I would argue that if this really had some sort of practical purpose, then you would see different variants of it. Like you would see examples that have 3 chunks with 2 flat pieces, or something else, you know? You do try, and if it really had some sort of benefit, you would try to increase that benefit. At least you would see examples that have it. There are also some kukris that I've seen that don't have that at all, no notch, just straight. I don't know if those are antique or historical or not. I've also seen some that have just pure decoration there, which is just clear that it has no practical purpose, it's just for show. But usually it's like this kind of 3-ish shape that you see there. And if it really had some practical purpose, you would have seen more variation, I would say. Now all of this leads me to believe that the kukri notch has no practical purpose, but that it is instead something religious or traditional that people did to worship something that we're not sure what they worship, but you know, something. And people have speculated with that as well. Like some people say that it represents a crow's foot, because crows are apparently worshipped by the Hindus, and others say that it's supposed to represent the trident of Shiva, which is a god in Hindu. Again, all possible, but we're not sure. We're not sure what it specifically represents, if it represents something, but I am convinced that this notch has no practical purpose, but has instead some religious or traditional meaning, reason behind it existing. And that means, here it comes, that Bronn's knife should not have this notch. Think about it. If this notch truly has no practical function, but is instead to worship some god that we had in the real world, or some tradition from a folk that we had on our real world, then it has no place in Westeros. It would make as much sense as the Lannisters waving around the British flag and start singing God Save the Queen or something like that. Because if it has no function, but is something religious, then why would Bronn have an item that represents a religion that we have in the real world? They're not worshipping Jesus either, so why would Bronn's kukri have this notch? It shouldn't. If you think about it, it makes a lot of sense for him to have this overall blade shape, because it's really useful. It's a very powerful chopper, and I actually like it that they have some variety in terms of blades, and I like it that Bronn has a blade like that. But Bronn's kukri should just be straight here, should not have this notch. So that's my over-analyzing conclusion. Face reveal at 1 million subs. And also, if you want to follow me on social media, then you can. Links are in the description below, and thank you for joining my quest, and I hope you'll join me in the next one. Bye guys.